Alright, what's going on, guys? You might have seen the headlines going around lately, hyping up this new game that was announced by PlayStation called Loulan, The Cursed Sands. This is a new action RPG coming from the studio Chili Room, and the game looks really cool, but there's a very specific reason why it's been catching so many headlines, and that's because this game is being developed by many ex-employees from FromSoftware and Santa Monica Studios, and you can really tell. The influence is absolutely there. Now, all that's been revealed about this game is a 2-minute trailer, and it's been kind of catching the game world by storm. So today I want to do a breakdown of everything we know about this game, what it is, what it's going to play like, the story being depicted here, and if us Souls-like and God of War fans are going to have something special to play. But of course, as we get started today, if you want to stay up to date on all things FromSoftware and Souls-like games, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and now let's get into it. To start out today, let's get a general overview of what exactly this game even is. Loulan the Cursed Sand is an action RPG first. And just to be clear, since we are on this channel, this is not a Souls-like, although there does appear to be some apparent inspiration as I mentioned. Things like a dodge roll, parries, deflects, big bosses, attack patterns, that sort of thing, but again, not a Souls-like. We'll get into the details of that in a bit. The game blurb reads as follows. Loulan the Cursed Sand is an action RPG set along the ancient Silk Road in the western regions of China. It tells a tragic love story of an exiled royal guard who returns to the fallen kingdom of Loulan amidst the chaos of war to find his beloved princess. You play as the skeletal warrior known as the Cursed Sand, mastering the power of sand to explore and solve puzzles in a perilous top-down world. Engage in realistic melee combat against overwhelming odds, defeat powerful enemies, and confront the fate of your own cursed existence. Now, what I mentioned earlier too is that this is being developed by the studio Chili Room, a team of indie developers, and that team is what's been catching headlines. Here's what the director had to say. Our core team is made up of veteran gamers born in the 80s and 90s. We grew up playing action games and were deeply inspired by classics like the original God of War and arcade action games. Many of us have worked on action titles at studios in the US and Japan, including Santa Monica Studio, FromSoftware, and Platinum Games. We're truly passionate about this genre and dedicated to pushing its boundaries. So there is some very stacked talent putting this game together. The director himself worked on God of War and God of War Ragnarok, and the transition from that to another action game. We can pretty much guarantee this is going to be a banger. And you can feel the FromSoftware influence too, of course playing as an undead hero, battling big bosses and all that stuff I talked about earlier. But with this not being a true Souls-like, and leaning much more into the action RPG side of things, what exactly is it going to play like? Well, we have a little bit of information on that. Just from the trailer itself, we can see very clearly much of the hero action RPG roots with these long and fast combos, sand powers, and supernatural feats of parkour. The gameplay leans much more into that arcade style. And the director states when talking about the gameplay, our goal is to blend classic arcade style combat with modern gameplay innovations, such as the unique interaction between the protagonist and his sand blade, which you can see is used in all kinds of ways, such as turning into a giant spinning star, summoning up a big sand tornado, and spinning out in front of the protagonist to create a shield. So you can see here, unlike Souls-like games, which are much more methodical, precise, and deliberate with each attack, the power fantasy is what's at the forefront of the gameplay here. This is aiming for more fun than realism or challenge. And trust me, I know I've been hearing you guys talking about Souls-like fatigue, and I'm feeling that a little bit too. So this seems like a really nice change of pace compared to what we've been having in the action RPG genre for the last few years. Going back to the roots of action RPG, while still maintaining the parts of the Souls-like games that pump that adrenaline. Now when it comes to the world that you'll actually be exploring, we don't have many details on that in terms of gameplay, but they do describe things like puzzles, which we see a few of in the trailer, and they note about exploration several times but don't go into detail. Now, if I had to guess, it looks like a pretty linear experience, but we don't know that yet. I would imagine something similar to traditional RPG worlds. Fairly linear, with exploration off the beaten path. This definitely doesn't look like an open world, and I would be very surprised if it is. But again, just based off the team making it, speculating off what they've said, my mind goes to something like God of War's world design. Now, the actual setting of the game takes place along the Silk Road, so I imagine we'll be traveling that road, finding many different destinations along the way. And that's a good transition to something we have much more details about, the game's story. Let's take a look at how the director describes the story and the setting of Loulan. Loulan, the Cursed Sand is an action RPG set along the ancient Silk Road in the western regions of China. You play as the Cursed Sand, a skeletal warrior wielding the power of sand, and sets out to explore the lost kingdom of Loulan, battle mighty foes, and search for his beloved princess. Inspired by the archaeological discovery of the Shaohe princess, the story follows the Cursed Sand, a royal guard resurrected after death, as he embarks on a tragic journey to find the lost princess of Loulan. For the protagonist, we drew inspiration from the Loulan mummies and the iconic desert sand of the western regions, creating a dual-form warrior. In sand form, Golden Sand wraps his body, a balanced fighter who wields the power of sand. When he unleashes the sand and forges a massive sand blade, he shifts into bone form, a powerful stance built for one versus many combat. So it seems like the protagonist uses the sand to either forge his body or forge a weapon, which sounds pretty cool actually. I like that concept a lot. On his journey, he will face powerful factions ranging from the Loulan royal family, who embody the power of the sun, to the frost-bound spiders of the western regions. We've reimagined iconic landscapes of the western region through a fantastical lens, from vast deserts to flowing rivers of sand. At the same time, we've always been fascinated by fantasy worlds inspired by the ancient Silk Road, especially the mysterious and radiant kingdom of Loulan, once a shining jewel along that route. With this project, we aim to bring the beauty and enigma of ancient Loulan to life through a retro top-down camera perspective. So I wanted to look into this a little bit more because it sounded cool. The history being depicted in the game follows the ancient kingdom that surrounded the desert along the Silk Road between Central Asia and India, with many of these oasis cities that were kind of the hubs in the 2nd century. Now in that region, they found many of these mummies that were so well preserved because of the sand and the dryness of the region, dating all the way back to the Bronze Age potentially. So that kind of seems where the theme of the sand making the hero's body comes from. But I just thought that was a really cool piece of history they're basing this on. It's interesting too, a lot of those mummies have very different genetic makeups, and with the setting of the Silk Road, there's a lot of potential here for a variety of influence and things the player can encounter, so it'll be cool to see how they use that in the gameplay and the story. Now, as far as when this game could be releasing, we don't currently know. However, the end of the trailer has the label of coming soon, so I hope we can take them at their word for that. Whenever it eventually does release though, it'll be coming to PlayStation 5 and PC through Steam and the Epic Games Store, unfortunately not making its way to Xbox, but this will definitely be a game I'll be checking out. I feel like action RPGs lately have been a little bit too inspired by the Souls success. For me personally, I'm a sucker for Souls-like, so I don't mind it, but I see it all the time with people wanting more of these hero action games to go back to their roots, and this looks like exactly that kind of game. But what do you guys think about Loulan, the Cursed Sand? Does it seem your style? Have you been looking for a game like this? Y'all let me know down below. This video is not sponsored, by the way. I genuinely thought it looked cool and wanted to talk about it. But yeah, definitely going to be keeping my eye on this one. Either way though, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I will catch you in the next one.